Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Hikmah. I'm class B 2018 and now I am the 5th semester at State University of West Sulawesi. And now I will explain the material that have taught by Mr. Adi Isma, one of the lecturer at State University of West Sulawesi. Mr. Adi Isma have taught some materials is English for specific purposes. The first material is the origins of ESP. But before I explain what is the origins of ESP, I will explain the definition of ESP or English for specific purposes. English for specific purposes is teaching which has specified objectives. Now I will explain the origin of ESP. There are three main reasons common to the emergence of ESP. The first is the demands of a brave new world. According to Hutchinson and Waters on 1987, note that two major historical periods made up ESP. First, the end of the Second World War, and the second is the oil crisis in the early 1970s, causing money and Western knowledge to flow into oil-rich countries. The second is a revolution in linguistics. Traditional linguistics began to describe language features. A revolutionary pioneer in linguistics began to focus on ways of using language in real communication. And the third is focus on deaf learners. Focusing on learners' needs become as important as the methods used to spread linguistic knowledge. To this day, the slogan on the ESL circle is centered on learners or centered on learning. The second material is the development of ESP. The first is register analysis. Register analysis is an analysis of grammatical and lexical features of the language used for a particular purpose or in a particular social setting. The second is rhetorical or discourse analysis. It identifies the organizational patterns in text and to specify the linguistic means by which these patterns are signaled. These patterns should then form the syllabus of the ESP course. The third is target situation analysis. According to Hutchinson and Waters 1987, target situation analysis was aimed to take students' existing knowledge and setting it on a more scientific basis by establishing procedures for relating language analysis more closely to learners' reasons for learning. And then is skills and strategies. The focus should rather be on to underlying interpretative strategies, which enable the learners to cope with the surface forms. For example, guessing the meaning of words from context, using visual layout to determine the type of the text, and etc. The last is a learning-centered approach. ESP concerned with language learning rather than language use. And the third material is ESP approach, not product. The roots which nourish the tree of ELT are communication and learning. They are ESP is not a matter of teaching specialized varieties of English because the fact the language is used for a specific purpose. There are some features which can be identified as typical of a particular context of use and which, so the learners is more perhaps to meet in the target situation. The second is ESP is not just a matter of science words and grammatical for scientists. So on, when we look at the tree, there's actually much hidden from view inside and beneath the tree, although we know the leaves and the branch. They are supported by a complex underlying structure. The point is, We need much more communication than just the surface features of what we read and hear. And also, we need to distinguish between performance and competence in relation to what people actually do with the language and the range of knowledge and abilities which can enable them to do it. The third is ESP is not different in kind from any other form of language. It based on the principle of effective and efficient learning. Even though the content of the learning is different, but the process of learning should be any different for the ESP learner than for the general English learner. And the fourth material is course design. Course design is a process and methodology for creating a quality learning environment and experience for students. Therefore, important to understand the main feature of each of these descriptions. We can identify 6 main stages of development. The first is classical or traditional grammar. Classical language is the language where the grammatical function of each word in the sentence was made apparent by the use of appropriate inflections. And the second is structural linguistics. This method of linguistic analysis led in English language teaching to the development of the substitution table as a typical means of explaining grammatical patterns. The third is transformational generative grammar. In the early stage of its development, ESP put most emphasis on describing the performance needed for communication in the target situation and paid little attention to the competence underlying it. And the fourth is language variation and register analysis. The language varies based on context it is used. Sometimes it can be formal or informal and written or spoken. And the fifth is functional or national grammar. Functional is concerned with social behavior and speaker or writer statement of intent such as advising, threatening, describing, and etc. And the last is discourse or rhetorical analysis. This stage deals with how the meaning between sentences is generated. The important thing is the context of the language. And the fifth material is theories of learning. The first is behaviorism, learning as habit information. This theory had a profound influence in the psychology of learning and teaching of language. It provides the theory to support the use of audiolingual methods of the 1950s and 1960s. And the second is mentalism, thinking as through governed activity. In language learning, thinking of an activity arranged the rules are also a step in learning, which learning not only consists of forming habits, but also acquiring rules by which the person's experience is used by the mind to formulate a hypothesis. And the third is cognitive code, learners as thinking beings. The cognitive code view of learning seems to answer many theories and problems. This makes students think and they place it at the center of the learning process. By emphasizing that learning will only occur when the material available for study is meaningful to students. And the sixth material is target need analysis. Target need analysis is a general term which is practice hiding a number of important differences. In other words, target need analysis what a student needs to do in the target situation. First is need. Need is about what learner must know in order to function effectively in the target situation. In other words, need also means a person's need to success in his/her effort. And the second is lack. Lack is the difference between current student competence and the competence of desire, so that teachers or facilitators can decide which needs are less for learners. And the third is want. Want means that students need to know what they want to learn. From the situation, the student will make various efforts to achieve his or her wishes. And the last material, or the seventh material, is approaches to course design. Course design is a process in which raw data on learning needs are interpreted to produce an integrated series of teaching experiences. The purpose of the course design is to guide learners to a certain level of knowledge. There are three main types of course design. The first is language-centered course design. Language-centered course design is the simplest and perhaps the most familiar type of course design for English teachers. The course design aims to illustrating a direct relationship might be between the analysis of the target situation and the content of the course ESP. And the second is skills-centered course design. Skill-centered course design based on two basic principles. The first is theoretical hypothesis of the basis of any language behavior. Is a particular skills and strategy which is the student uses to produce or understand the discourse. And the third is a learning-centered approach. Is a learning approach based on the principle that learning is determined entirely by learners. As teachers, we can influence that we teach, but what a student learns is determined by the student himself. Learning is viewed as a process in which learners use their knowledge or skills to understand the flow of new information. So, that's the material that Mr. Adi has taught to me. Seventh material, and now I have explained all of them. I hope you can understand. I said I think enough from me, and thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.